Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L and now let's talk Kakegurui, the opening. I watched the episode, I've seen the opening. The opening is one of those really packed with detail type openings. So those kind of openings are really fun to just step through and talk about, kind of just look at all the still frames and see what we can draw out from it. So let's do that with this particular opening. Disclaimer, I have not read the original manga, so I don't really know what's happening, and because of that, this will be mostly pretty much just a person coming in with new eyes and just pointing out nice little cool ideas and concepts that the opening is packing. So this will be a mix of commentary slash any sort of breakdown I could possibly come up with. So without further ado, let's just start the opening.
1, 2, 1.
Alright, so already we have some pretty interesting imagery popping up. Right before this little sequence, we just see all the food in the background. We see this girl laid it down on a table, and we see our main character right there ready to eat. So this is actually pretty interesting, especially when you take into account the first episode. We have a lot of this food motif there, and so I actually really appreciate the thematics going in with this opening, because it very quickly paints what kind of character Jabami is, at least if in terms of what her vice is. So with the food and with the way that Jabami just looks like she's gonna enjoy eating, and we know that the show isn't about eating, it's about gambling, it really does set up that this person is not so much a greedy character, rather she is an insatiable character. She is a character that likes to indulge, and as we find out in the first episode, we get a pretty good idea of her personality, and we find out that she is the kind of person that likes getting involved because of the thrill. She likes taking risks, and she just gets really ecstatic talking about taking risks. So when you have that kind of personality, I think attributing it to gluttony in particular, this idea that she just wants more and more of this particular thing. Of course, gluttony is specifically food, but when you take into account the metaphors here, it's more of she wants more of that adrenaline rush, she wants more of that feeling, she's insatiable, she just wants to continue to devour this good time. And having in the shot the one girl who is a gambler as well being on that table as if she's a morsel to be devoured, you know, I do think it's a pretty clever way of using imagery here. So stopping at that point, it's just really important to note how they've actually animated her dance sequence. It's pretty charming in all honesty, and as we'll see later on in the opening, the dance sequence is something that keeps getting reflected, and it does really help with the energy that the opening is presenting. And again, we see more of the food in the background, and that's just, you know, just continuing on with the motif. So let's stop it there just so that we can kind of look at the imagery, because this is just pretty interesting to see all around. Now, Jabami's moving around, she's just observing what's on the table. We have one of the characters that we saw in the first episode, and then we have Mari on the background. Again, the imagery just kind of helps that exotic, kind of majestic kind of feel going on. Ah, legs. Leg fetish. That's going to be pretty important to note. This show is really good at pointing out certain features on people's bodies, and right now we're looking at legs. You can't have a leg fetish and then not expect them to have a panty shot somewhere in there. I mean, that's just to be expected, guys. Like, that's just whatever. Okay, so continuing with the leg thing, we're doing it, and now it's just the legs are framing the initial setup. This is pretty much referencing the first episode and the status of the male character when Jabami first shows up and sees him. Okay, so that little sequence right there actually did quite a bit. First off, it references the game that we first saw in the first episode, what the rock, paper, scissors cards, and it also kind of illustrates the relationship that the male character finds himself in the first episode, and just kind of the dynamics for this particular character. So that was a pretty nice sequence. It was all very fast. Jabami, then the character, him getting punched, then the cards with Mari holding them. Again, legs, man. The leg fetish continues, and this is most likely the girl that's going to be taken down in the second episode. And from the playing cards, we can assume they're going to be playing some sort of card game. Alright, let's stop it at this part. Now this part has a lot of details going on. Let's zoom in on the first girl that we saw. We can see that she's sitting in front of... Actually, I'm not sure what game that is. It's not checkers, but behind her, there seems to be some variation of a dartboard. We saw knives, so most likely it's going to be hitting that thing with knives. When we zoom out, we have another girl over on the left. She's got dice surrounding her. Must be some kind of dice game. Maybe it's craps. Then when we go to the other girl on the right, she has just a bunch of paraffin. Actually, what are those? Candies? Just a lot of candy? Well, whatever. Cool. Either way, 3 characters all in one go. It'll be interesting to see what exactly comes out of those 3 characters. Now we're jumping to another character, and she's clearly the one that has the tongue thing. Like in all anime, there's going to be one character that does weird things with their tongues. This is probably that girl. You know, I would actually really enjoy it if one of the episodes in the future actually uses the metaphor of a strawberry being destroyed for the idea that someone just had their head caved in. That said, I liked how the song went Heaven or Hell as the banner with Heaven or Hell fell off or came down, but I'm going to take away points for finishing the Heaven or Hell line in another scene altogether because, like, you know, I think that you can't appreciate it as well as you could have if you just waited a little bit more. Okay, another new character. Interestingly, this girl looks like an idol type character. That seems to be her archetype. But the thing that's really interesting is the dice that she has behind her. They're all D10. So that'll be pretty interesting to see what kind of game they'll come up with for her. Oh man, finally there's a guy. Jeez, it was just a girl fest up to this point. We can tell that this guy has some kind of hierarchy on top of Mary. So that's pretty good to know. Okay, so that sequence was full of wind. Just like looking at it again, this is just a really nice sequence to watch. It had to be rotoscoped. I assumed it was rotoscoped, but if it wasn't, whatever. It's still a really nice fluid sequence. I really enjoyed it. That was pretty well, nicely animated. That might be the best shot of the opening when it comes to the fluidity of the animation itself, and I really appreciated it. It was really good. You know, this opening picks a fetish and it just sticks with it, and you know this is just, that's what they're going for. But at this point now, we're kind of slowing down. But again, leg fetish, you just have to point it out. Now, all that can really be said here is that this is clearly showing that these two characters have some sort of relationship. We can't assume how serious it is because this opening is really bombastic with it. But we do know that these characters appear together. They appeared together in the first episode. And so this scene is pretty much just paying homage to the fact that these two have an established relationship. What her falling in the juice means, I have no idea. Maybe just a juicy time for them. Yeah, that's definitely a juicy time for them. The sudden splash of, you know, water right after this girl gets licked, that's clearly a metaphor for something. But we can leave it there. Interestingly, though, what was really cool is how there's an apple on the screen right now. And we know for those two characters, they established that they have some kind of metaphor going on with the Garden of Eden. Especially in the first episode where they make a reference to Jabami as a snake in a garden. So with the apple there, that's just kind of, I think, continuing the general metaphor of the Garden of Eden. You have the snake, you have the garden, you have the apple. Awesome. And you have... let's see, Fountains of Desire. Let's call it that. So the sequence of Jabami running is just worth noting because this is right around when the music actually starts bumping up a little bit. So that was a pretty good way to segue. Man, still, like, I really thought the whole leg thing was just a joke, but they committed. Like, again, just using legs as framing. Again, Jabami is now in between legs, which is a pretty interesting parallel to the beginning of the opening where it was originally Mari that was in between legs. Again, they're taking their leg thing very seriously for this opening. Props, I guess? Our male character. That looks like a guy who has no idea what he's doing there. And truthfully, like, yeah, like, this is a pretty freaky time, man. So this is another scene with a lot of detail packed in it if you're looking around. So we can see that there's a lot of food on the table, but if you look closely, you can also see the poker chips, you can see some cards, you can see cake, crab, more poker chips and cards. pretty cool sequence. As we can see, the girl with the gun is again showing off the heaven or hell kind of idea. And the main character being on the table most likely is pointing to the fact that this guy's property. He has no personality, he has no human rights, he's just property. I'm not really sure what to say about this one actually. I guess it's just like this guy is really doesn't know what to do with Jabami, and Jabami's just like, this is the best meal I've ever had, I assume. Now, in all fairness, that whole little sequence where she pulls her clothes and is whispering in her ear, that was both equal parts hot and equal parts really, really disturbing. I'm not sure why it's disturbing. Maybe just the fact that, you know, it's just, it was just kind of weird. But yeah. Overall, that's it. That's the opening. My God, that was fun. Anyway, that's it for the video. Guys, thanks for watching. Let me know what you thought of the opening down below. I think it's a pretty fun opening, and I'm pretty excited to see what kind of things we're going to be getting in the future to kind of tie back to the opening. Anyways, let me know if you guys have any other ideas down below. And till next time, I hope you have a great day.